Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Well, one of the craziest people in this world that we're living in, Laurie Daybell, or Laurie Vallow, or Laurie Vallow Daybell, or whatever she likes to call herself. The Fruit Loop extraordinaire. I mean, this woman is batshit crazy, isn't she? Having said that, she's not crazy enough that she does, she must have been mentally evaluated and found to be mentally sound enough to stand trial because, of course, she stood trial for conspiracy to the murder of Tammy Daybell and her own children, JJ and Tylee, and was found guilty. So she's serving life in prison without parole. And then now she's been brought to court to stand for the murder or conspiracy to murder of her ex-husband, Charles Vallow, who's the guy in the photo there in happier times with Laurie. Now, I mean, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Laurie and all the horrible things, she's left a literal trail of bodies behind her, including two of her, her own children, Tylee and JJ. The thing about Laurie is she's still saying that she was wrongfully convicted of the death of her children and of Tammy Daybell, her lover's wife, Chad Daybell. She's still saying that this was a family tragedy. It wasn't murder. It wasn't murder. It was a family tragedy that her two children were found buried on her lover's property, one of which had been dismembered. Both had been set on fire, I believe. It was a horrible, horrible case. While she was off in Hawaii marrying her new husband, Chad Daybell, before her old husband, Charles Vallow, was barely cold in his grave. And also Chad's wife, Tammy, was hardly cold in her grave. And they were found guilty of her murder anyway. And now, Laurie didn't get her hands dirty. Oh, no, no, no. She was too busy making her enchiladas, wasn't she? Her chicken chili enchiladas that she talked about in court that, were so fantastic, apparently everybody talked about. But her other brother, one of her brothers, he couldn't remember anything about them. She got really pissed off about that. Now, I don't know if you watched the trial of Laurie, but the thing is, unfortunately, the whole thing is true and people have died at her hands. And if not for that, it'd be hilarious because she's just a ridiculous person. She is such a Fruit Loop. She's in such denial of everything she's done. And the trial was comical almost. As I say, if it wasn't for the fact that it was a trial for the murder of this man, or the conspiracy to murder this man, it would have been hilarious. It was like some comedy show. You've got a woman here who was having an affair with somebody else, then sort of decided to be her own attorney in the trial. So she was doing all the cross-examining, etc. And when the prosecution brought someone up who had been on a date with Charles Vallow, she'd met him through a dating site and really liked him, and it seemed like they got on really well. And then, of course, he was murdered shortly after that, so she never got to hear from him again. And she thought he'd literally ghosted her until she found out what had happened to him. You've got Laurie Daybell saying to her, "Oh, do you normally go out with married men? Did you know Charles and I were actually still together?" Despite the fact she was already having an affair with Chad Double Chin Daybell. Oh, I mean, it's crackers. You could not make it up. Then she, as I say, she was talking about her chicken chili enchiladas, and she couldn't believe that her brother Adam could not, remember anything about them. She thought they were so brilliant. She got the hump about that he did not remember these enchiladas that she always made at family gatherings. Now, she had two brothers. So she had like a bad brother and a good brother. So that was her good brother, Adam, that she was cross-examining. And her bad brother, Alex, who is now, he's deceased as well. I mean, did she have something to do with that? Who knows? Supposedly not. Supposedly he had a heart attack or, but he was quite young. There were, but he'd murdered all these people. But also he was a stand-up comedian. Anyway, he was like a henchman. Seems like they had a bit of a strange relationship between brother and sister. He seemed to be totally in love with her. He would do anything she asked. Anyway, it was him who actually killed Charles Vallow. He shot him twice, supposedly in self-defense. But so, I mean, this was quite a long time ago. And it was never found to be any criminal charges. It was found to be self-defense. But now, of course, in view of everything else that's happened, it's been re-examined. And this was a difficult trial, which maybe Laurie, if she wouldn't have tried to defend herself and she would have actually gotten a proper attorney, she may well have won, because the thing is, Charles Vallow's death was, at the time, ruled self-defense. So she's being charged with conspiracy to murder. So first of all, the prosecution had to prove that it was a murder and not self-defense. And because her brother is now dead, the person who actually fired the two shots that killed Charles, this trial was all about, did Laurie conspire with him to do it? And then, as I say, first of all, you've got to prove that it's a murder, not self-defense, because it was classed as self-defense. So anyway, it's a right mess, this story. And then, just everything else, the children who she decided were zombies. Well, her and Chad, double chin Chad, decided they were zombies. They weren't, they were already dead. They'd been invaded by zombies. So it wasn't like killing anyone. Anyway, so Laurie pled not guilty to that, but she's found guilty. She's been sentenced to life, whatever, but now this will be another sentence that she'll get. But she's still insisting. She refers to the death of her children as a family tragedy. She cannot accept what she did, can she? Anyway, hello to all you lurkers watching at home. Hello to those of you that are watching on replay crew. I'm going to say hello to those of you who are in here now. And now we're going to look at, God, there's so much you could say about Laurie Daybell. You could literally go on all day. But what we're going to look at is the verdict. And we're going to look at things, we're going to see a jury member speaking. We're going to look at the Court TV summary of it all, and I'm going to react to it. I'm going to comment to it. If you're not subscribed to Court TV, I would advise you to subscribe to it. If you're interested in true crime, it's a very, very, very good channel. Okay, so now let me put my banner on, actually, because I want to thank everyone. Yeah, I always forget this. Thank you all for watching, for liking. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Thank you to my members. Oh, got a good members live tomorrow night. We're going to talk about my guest, or one of my guests, on Friday. Well, I'll be telling you who they both are. But we're going to talk about them a bit in the members live tomorrow. And I'm just keeping stum about that at the moment. What else? Oh, thank you to those who buy me Ko-fis. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Really helps keep my channel going. Thank you to those who send super stickers, PayPal me, etc. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Okay, let's have a look at who's actually in chat now. Those that are brave to venture into chat. Hi, Sheep Farm in Australia. Oh, thank you so much. That's really sweet. So, Sheep Farm in Australia says they love my work from Ballarat. Listen, it's all gone quiet again about Samantha Murphy, hasn't it? My God, the police are really taunting us, aren't they, with things? So, I wonder if they've taken Patrick Stevenson back out again yet. But it's all gone quiet again anyway. Hi, my angel. She is a total Fruit Loop, isn't she? Hi, Heather. How are you? Are you still improving? I hope so. Hi, Yvonne. Yvonne, I'm having a good day. I had a nightmare morning. Well, it wasn't a nightmare. The thing is, when you talk, doing these videos and talking about true crime, it always helps me get things in perspective. Because well, to cut a very long story short, just some Spanish bureaucracy that I had to deal with this morning. Anyway, it's sorted now. I think it's all sorted. I feel like a liberated person. It's something that's like I've been trying to do for ages, and anyway, uh, it's done, I think. So yeah, I feel really good now, but I've been worrying about this for quite a long time. So I feel like I've been liberated from that. That's a really nice feeling. Cost me a fortune, but anyway, it's done, and that's it. It's done. Hopefully, it's not final yet, but it's like 99% sorted. Still that 1% to go though. But yeah, I'm not waking up this morning like families are waking up without their loved ones and this, that, and the other. I woke up this morning knowing that I had to grapple with this bureaucracy thing. And this is what we always say, don't we? These small things do get on top of you, but you have to get things into perspective, because there's so much. The most important things is that your loved ones are all safe, that you're safe, your mental health's okay, your physical health, all those things that we talk about. And actually, that reminds me, while I'm talking about that, if I can find my lighter. I had a little tidy up today with just, I won't be able to find my lighter now. Yeah, I had a little tidy up and tried to sort of sort my desk out. But of course, it's right over there. Why did I put it right over there? Of course, tidying things up, then you can't find anything after, can you? So here's our candle for all of us, but for Charles Vallow especially, because this verdict has just come in, but also for JJ and Tylee and Tammy and all the other bodies that Laurie has left in her wake. But also, I think importantly for us, for all of us, for all of yous out there who are having problems, because at the end of the day, whatever your problem is, there's always people with bigger problems, but it doesn't make your problem any less important, does it? So I hope you're all okay. And you know what? We can't heal the world, can we? But we can at least send out positive vibes, prayers for ourselves, each other, for the cases that we cover. And I do feel like some justice has been achieved. We've had quite a lot of justice this year. That's a good thing, isn't it? We've had quite a lot of positive verdicts and positive. Laurie's not been sentenced for this yet, but she's already in prison anyway. But yeah, we've had quite a bit of justice so far this year, so that's good. Okay, yeah, I got distracted just for a change. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a leak in my toilet as well. It's been for ages and I just keep leaving it, Angel. And it's a small thing, but the trouble is every time you go and flush the toilet, it's depressing because, when I flush my toilet, it's all this water gushes out. It's a bit of a long story, but I had a new flush put on it, and the plumber that came, he totally cocked it up, made a mess of it. And it's been a couple of years now and it hasn't been brilliant, but just lately, over the last couple of months, it's like, literally flush the toilet, all this water pours out, so then you have to mop up the bathroom floor. And it does, it's sort of like a downer, isn't it? These things. Anyway, I will get it sorted. But it's all money, isn't it? And there's other more important things, that I had to pay for. And, it's like at least I can still use the toilet and it's not, anyway, I will get it sorted. But yeah, the sense of happiness you felt when it was fixed. Yeah, exactly. It feels bloody fabulous when something that's been getting you down every day, even though it's not a life or death thing, when you get it sorted. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And do you know why we put these things off? It's normally financial reasons, isn't it? Financial reasons. It's just something else to pay for when you've got other things. It's more important you get your electric paid or you get your whatever paid. I don't know how much it's going to cost me. So, if I get someone out, it could be anything between €50 and €200 probably. Well, I hope it's not any more than that. But I have no idea. So I think that's what's a bit scary about it, is because you think you're going to get somebody out there, and yeah, if it's €50, that's fine. But if it's going into the 200s or whatever, so it's scary, because once you set it into process, you get someone out to do it, you've just got to pay whatever it is, haven't you? So I had other things to pay for, one of which I've paid is one of these bureaucracy things that I've had to do today. So maybe the next on the list, I'll get the loo fixed. Oh dear, I don't know. Anyway, but these are small problems in the scale of things, aren't they? I'm sure when one day, as comes to us all, if I'm lying on my deathbed, I won't be worrying about the toilet, will I? So that's thing. Yeah, I need to sit and look at it properly. It could be an easy fix. I know it sounds ridiculous, but there's just not enough hours in the day normally. So I suppose I don't think of it as important enough. But it is important, and you're right. And I'm going to look at it. I'm going to get it sorted. That's going to be the next thing on my list, I think. Okay, so yes, so I've said everyone. I think I've said hello to everyone in chat. If I've missed you, please say hello to me again, and I'll say hello back. I think I have said hello to the people that are in chat, and I've said hello to people at home watching, and I've said hello to the replay crew. So let's have a look at this. It's just, I do find Laurie fascinating because she's such a total Fruit Loop. She's a bloody psychologist dream, isn't she? You could study her and you could write thesis after thesis. You could bloody do a doctorate on studying Laurie, because she's not like anyone that I have ever seen before. She has she's a psychopath, basically a narcissist. She has no remorse. Wait till you hear some of the things she even brings Tylee into this, and she was complicit in Tylee's murder, a teenage girl, her teenage daughter, biological daughter. JJ was not her biological son. Not that that makes any difference, but and she just uses Tylee. Well, wait till you hear what she has to say. Laurie is one of those people that when you watch her talking, your mouth drops open, because it's just like, so she's 50 years old now. And also she looked to me like she'd had some fillers. I said this before. I don't know how she's managed that in prison. I think she's probably got money, but I don't know where she gets it from. The other thing about Laurie is this little girly voice she puts on. You're on it. Oh, yes, finished now. You're on. She puts this, so you'll notice with the jury that was chosen, there were 10 men and 2 women. One of the women, is obviously gay. Or, maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm not being horrible when I say that. But so, she chose the jury that she thought her little girly voice, that would get around, and it didn't work. It's such a nice feeling. Notice that she did not choose a jury. I don't know, even a jury, you have to choose so many men and so many women. I don't know if there's a stipulation, but she made sure she chose the men because she thought she could get around them. So that's what she does. She flirts and thinks, I put on my little girly voice. It's always worked for me before. She's been married about 300 times because men obviously like her. She's an attractive woman. She was in beauty competitions, etc. So she tried that and it failed with this jury. Thank you, God. Because she tried to sort of even talking to the judge, she was putting on this little girly voice, it's just, she's awful to listen to, as if that because she puts on a little girly voice and flirts with them, they're going to forgive the fact that she was complicit in the murder of 2 children, 1 woman, 1 man, and more probably. Because there was another of her husbands died in suspicious circumstances. Her and her hitman brother, Alex, who knows what other people. There's another case due to come up soon where it was the partner of her cousin. He was shot at as well. There is more to come from this woman. And the other thing is, I think she loves trotting around the court, doesn't she, with her hair done and that. She's been smiling her way through it. You would not think she was on trial for what, she's got no, she's on trial for conspiracy to murder her husband, but she's just loving it, smiling, laughing, joking. It's a day out, isn't it, where it's attention to someone like Laurie. The narcissist that she is, the psychopath that she is. Any attention is better than no attention. So let's have a look at this. Very interesting. It is interesting. Even though it's horrible, it is interesting. So I'll give the credit here. This is Court TV. And thank you, Court TV, because this I think this was a brilliant assessment.
Reached a verdict.
Be seated. Do we have a 4-person? Who's the 4-person?
Yeah. Yes.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, we have.
I'm going to ask you to hand that to my courtroom assistant.
So it's all about her hair, isn't it? Who does their hair, these convicts? I don't know. Anyway, and she decided to represent herself, which was a big mistake, because I think if she would have brought in a clever lawyer, they may possibly have gotten her off this charge, because first of all, as I said, they had to actually prove that it was murder in the first place, because originally it was supposedly self-defense.
I'll ask the clerk to read and record the verdict.
In the Superior Court of the State of Arizona in and for the County of Maricopa, State of Arizona versus Laurie Daybell, CR 2021-001704-001, verdict count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action, upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Laurie Daybell, as to the crime of count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about July 11, 2019, guilty. Signed, 4-person. Is this your true verdict? So say you one and all.
Yes.
On the court's own motion, I'll go ahead and ask the clerk to poll the jury.
Juror number 1, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 2, is this your?
So she doesn't really show any emotion. We can't see her face, unfortunately. I would have liked to have seen her face. But, she doesn't show any visible signs of emotion when the verdict is guilty. But she looks at every one of the jurors as they go through asking the jurors individually. She looks at them as they speak. Yeah, we should be allowed to see her face, but we're not.
True verdict.
Yes.
Juror
Sorry, just want to add to that. So, because in these cases, sometimes where the judge does allow cameras, but they make sure that they're only, at the back or whatever, they're only allowed in certain parts. We're sort of lucky in a way, if you like, that it was even televised because, it's up to the judge to decide whether trials are televised or not. And this judge obviously said, yes, it could be televised, but the camera's got to go right out the back there.
number 6, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 7, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 8, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 9, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 10, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 12, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 13, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 15, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 16, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask the jury.
So good to hear that. And she's thinking she can twist men round her little finger. Didn't work, did it, Laurie? Because you cannot refute evidence. We're going to hear a juror shortly talking about the things that convinced them. There were messages, that it was just, she should have just pled guilty right from the beginning.
Jury to retire to the jury room for just about 2 minutes. I need to discuss something with the parties before we determine whether you're done or not. So the admonition still applies. Please go to the jury room for a few minutes.
All right, to the jury.
All right, because Daybell is found guilty, the case now in Arizona moves to the aggravation phase. It is unique to this state. During this phase, the judge has to decide if applicable aggravating factors exist beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, this is separate from the sentencing hearing, which will take place at a later date.
Yeah, this is really weird and particular to Arizona. I don't understand all the legal ins and outs, but anyway, that's the process that will take place.
We are under a court order to delay broadcast for 30 minutes from the beginning of the aggravating factor phase. And the judge you just heard wants to speak with the attorneys, which means speaking with Laurie herself. And I'm sure then we'll find out whether or not they're going to proceed with the aggravating factors today. I want to bring back in guest criminal defense attorney Robin Nunn. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone who's watched the trial. A lot of circumstantial evidence that built up. And I think that this jury just determined, hey, there is not a reasonable doubt that Laurie Daybell did conspire to kill Charles Vallow.
I think that's right. I think that unfortunately for Laurie Daybell, the facts, the evidence all pointed in one direction, and it was towards her. And I think that there was a very low chance that she would be successful in defending herself in this case.
Let me play devil's advocate as a defense attorney. If you were representing her throughout the course of this trial, do you think that a criminal defense attorney might have been able to cross-examine the witnesses better and differently and know strategically whether or not to actually present any evidence in her defense? It's not required. Laurie didn't do it, but a defense attorney might have said strategically there was something that would be good to present.
So don't forget, she stood up there and spoke to Charles's sister, cross-examined the sister, cross-examined her own brother. I honestly, personally, I don't think these people should be allowed to do these kind of things. They should not be allowed to represent themselves. We saw it with Ted Bundy, we saw it with Rodney Alcala, making their victims and their victims' family feel even more uncomfortable than they already are. I think the only reason that Charles's sister did so well on the stand is, time has passed. So, she won't have got over the death of her brother because you never got over it. But I suppose as time goes on, and she's probably just grateful that it's coming to a trial because don't forget, originally it was found to be self-defense. And she just wanted to make them all feel uncomfortable. They should get sentenced for that. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. You're a murderer. And she is a convicted murderer, don't forget, because she's already been convicted of conspiring to kill her own children and her husband's wife. She is a murderer. She shouldn't be allowed to do this. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. I think it's terrible. And I'll tell you what, if I just think if you had to go up there, they did so well, all the witnesses, including the woman that Charles had just been out with that one time, because she was baiting her. She stood up there and said, "Oh, do you always go out with married men?" She's already having an affair with a married man, and she organised for his, helped for his wife to be murdered. And she's got the gall, the cheek to stand there and say to that woman that just went out for one date with Charles Vallow, just for a meal, she wasn't having an affair with him, and listen to her say to her, "Do you always go out with married men?" Oh my God. Disgusting.
Do you think it could have or might have even been a different outcome if she had chosen to be represented by an attorney?
I definitely think so. I wasn't coaching on the sidelines or questioning, everything, but I was watching the trial, and there were objections that she missed. There were areas and lines of questioning that I would have gone down that she did not. I know that she seemed to be getting along with her advisory counsel that was there with her during the trial.
Yeah, she's just thinking she can do it because she's a psychopath. Anyway, I'm going to just fast forward that a bit because I want to get to the bit where she's speaking. Yeah, she should not have defended herself. She did herself damage, really. But anyway, good. Good she did herself damage. But it would have hurt the people she was talking to as well. The stenographer's face. Look at the stenographer's face there. Her face was a picture through most of it.
Self-defense. Alex had the right to self-defense.
Yeah, self-defense. Shite.
This event was not planned or expected. It was shocking.
Yeah.
We learned in this trial that Chandler Police Department neglected. Alex had the right to self-defense.
Sorry, I just want to rewind that.
At first, the jury had to find it was a
says-
murder because we know saying exactly that was her position.
Under Arizona law, I had the right to self-defense. Tylee had the right to self-defense.
Tylee had the right to self-defense. That's her daughter that she later murdered or got Chad Daybell or her brother to murder. Tylee had the right to self-defense. How can she live with herself? That's her biological daughter, Tylee, who was found dismembered in her husband's garden or land, charred, burnt, her body defiled. And she says that Tylee had the right to self-defense. Oh my God, this woman is the worst of the worst.
Alex had the right to self-defense.
Yeah, fuck off.
This event was not planned or expected. It was shocking.
It was shocking.
We learned in this
Sorry,
trial that Chandler Police Department neglected to do a thorough investigation. We learned that they did not.
I'll say I'll shut up and then I can't. So now she starts blaming the police department because they believe, and they did do wrong. They believed all the shite that Alex came out with and she came out with. But, you can't blame the police for that. That's her.
Not swab Alex's hands for gunpowder residue.
Oh,
We learned that they did not swab my hands for gunpowder residue.
oh my God.
We learned that they did not swab Tylee's hands for gunpowder
Oh.
residue. We learned that they did not luminol the gun. We learned that they did not luminol the bat. They did not test the DNA on the bat that they collected. They did not test the floorboard. They did not test the projectile. They did not test my husband's shirt. They did not search the rental car. They did not search any of our 3 cars.
So suddenly it's my husband, my husband, my husband. They were getting a divorce because she was having an affair with somebody else. Oh my God.
That were there at the scene. They did not test the gun until over 5 years later.
Look at that stenographer's face. She's probably thinking, what a
The
bit.
Chandler Police Department did treat this event just like it was, self-defense and a tragic family event.
That's what she keeps saying, a tragic.
We learned in this
event.
trial that Charles and I were obviously having marital problems. regardless of what was happening in our marriage at the time, on July 11th, this was self-defense.
A tragic family event is when someone's killed in an accident. Or, you know, I don't know, killed in an accident or misadventure or whatever. That's a tragic family incident or event. Not when someone murders somebody.
All right, Robin. So here's what I'm thinking is she did get it. She did get that she needed this jury to believe it was self-defense because then she couldn't be guilty of conspiring to a crime. Obviously, the jury didn't buy it. But at the end of the day, there was some evidence that Alex said this was self-defense. Why do you think a jury may not say, well, we're not going to believe that, though?
Yeah, I think that there wasn't necessarily a smoking gun in this case, such that it was, without a doubt that it was her and that this was intentional. However, there was enough circumstantial evidence, and unfortunately, her deciding to sort of, go it alone, I'm not sure that she had a very realistic understanding of the risks and the ability to navigate them in a courtroom. And I think that at the end of the day was the pitfalls. I think that there was strong evidence, strong circumstantial evidence that could lead one to conclude. And that's exactly how the jury came out. I think she would have been better served if she had gotten a trained lawyer. I know she spoke to the media and said that she's been living this case for the last few years and that she would be a stronger advocate for herself than a lawyer who had to get up to speed in a shorter amount of time. I just don't think that's the case. I think that she would have had a more objective defense if she...
Now, she's definitely had fillers. Look at her cheeks. How has she managed that? I'll tell you, Laurie, look at her face. She's even half smiling on there. She doesn't take any of it seriously. She's a total Fruit Loop weirdo, she is. Anyway, I'm going to fast forward it a little bit a minute. So I want to hear what she's got to say. There you go.
Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Were you aware at all of the relationship between Charles and Tylee?
It was, let's say, it was a bit contemptuous. It seemed like there was always a lot of drama going on. And
so this is Charles's sister. And what Laurie's trying to, you look at the judge's face. Everybody's face is just incredulous looking at Laurie. What she's trying to insinuate is that Tylee and Charles, her husband, had a sort of contentious relationship. And Kay, I think her name is, Charles's sister, she's been, honest on, that they did have some arguments sometimes. But if you want to tell me any teenager doesn't have arguments with their own parents, never mind step parents, that's obvious, isn't it? So she's not going to lie and say, oh, no, they had a perfect relationship and they never had an argument. But what Laurie's trying to show is that, that she was self-defense, that Charles was there threatening them in some way. What a bitch. Total bitch. It's not enough that she conspired to murder him because she thought she was a goddess. Because that came out in her messages as well. She thought she was, is it Nephi or whatever, some goddess, one of the chosen people to be with double chin Chad Daybell, which talk about a downgrade. I mean, Charles looked much nicer than him. It seemed like such a much nicer person. She chose Chad Daybell.
so that's all I knew. He didn't say too much about it and I didn't pry.
But you knew that there was some kind of contention going on with those two for
I
a
can't hear
while.
you.
I'm sorry. You did know that there was some kind of contention going on with those two for a while.
She said, I can't hear you. That's because she's using that little baby girly voice. So she seems very down to earth, Kay. And you could see that those two would never have got on because, be like me, really. Someone like Laurie, I could not bear having somebody like that in my life because you know, she's just want to, you can just see. It's all, oh, I'm so nice and cute. And I'm just using this little girly voice. And inside, she's a stone cold, hard granite bitch. I would rather have a bitch, you know, who'd said what they thought, and maybe they're difficult to get along with, but at least they're honest in what they say, than someone who's, oh, pretending to be all nice and everything. And then really, they're horrible person.
Yes.
Okay. And you weren't really aware of the events that happened that morning, were you?
The morning of his murder?
Of July 11th?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Because you didn't tell me.
Ms. Woodcock, did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with Alex Cox to kill my husband, Charles Vallow?
No, but I saw a ton of evidence that did.
Yeah.
Thank you. No further questions.
So was Charles.
Thank you. No further questions. Yeah, because you said to her, did you ever hear me conspire? Also, of course, she didn't hear it, but she heard, and she said the right thing. Yes, but I heard a ton of evidence that showed that you did conspire. So Laurie, at least a little bit wisely, didn't press that any further, because, you know, if she would have said, well, what evidence did you see? And she would have come out with it all. So, yeah, and then she went, oh, thank you, no further questions.
In her life for most of her memorable years.
Exactly. Yes, he was.
And how old was she in July of 2019?
She was 16. Yeah,
So a teenager.
Yes.
In terms of their relationship, are you saying that Charles and Tylee never had good times?
Oh, I'm not saying that. I saw them have good times, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't that they couldn't look at each other, or, you know, it wasn't like that. But I mean, yeah, a teenage girl on one is hard anyway. But I do know that there was a lot of issues with her dad and Lori with her ex-husband and custody, and it was a mess. It was a mess.
So Tylee had a lot going on in her life.
Yes, she did.
And you would see
Poor
her
Tylee.
and Charles at times have difficulty getting along.
Yeah, of course.
I never really saw anything that sticks out in my mind. But I just know he'd tell me how it was just difficult. And it, you know, as a step parent, it can be very difficult. I can attest to that.
So on July 11th, when Charles Vallow was killed, did you actually have any idea that your brother was dead?
None at all. How would I know?
So in terms of you learning that your brother was dead, it was never from Lori Vallow.
Or from her.
It was.
It was from Google.
Yeah.
That my husband found.
Thank you.
Imagine finding out on Google that your brother is dead. Because Laurie didn't even tell his own sister that he was dead. And she just sent a message, I think, to his kids. Or was it her? It was that. Do you know what? I lose track of what she said to who about which murder, because there's so many bodies she's left behind her. But yeah, she did not tell Charles's own sister that he was dead. She had to find out on Google. I mean, that says a lot in itself, doesn't it, really?
I have no other questions.
All right, Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft is covering the trial. She was inside the courtroom during the verdict, and here she is. Kelly Craft, great to see you.
Hi there, Judge Ashley. Yes, we just came from being inside that courtroom where the verdict was read. We had gotten notice that there was a verdict in this case. So, of course, we rushed into the courtroom. At first, the security does not let people in, so you have to line up. So many people were milling around. And then we did get inside the courtroom. Still, it took some time for the jurors to get back into place and be brought into the courtroom. The judge even said it's been about 45 minutes since we announced that there was a verdict in this case. And then the jurors were brought in. And then
now this is very interesting because we're going to actually hear from a juror. I'm going to fast forward it a bit to that because the rest of it is what we already know anyway. But it's very interesting to hear where's the juror gone? Hang on.
Lori, as that verdict was read, no real reaction from her or a reaction from the side of the state, the prosecutor's table. So no real reaction from them. When the jurors came in, I always watch the jurors as they make their way into the courtroom after we have heard that they have reached their verdict. I noticed one of the gentlemen, as he was making his way in, he turned and looked over at Kay Woodcock. And I have noticed throughout covering a lot of these trials, usually that's a pretty good indication that they are going to come back with a guilty verdict, because he did take a look at Kay Woodcock, kind of smiled, and then he made his way to the seat. And then, of course, we did hear that guilty verdict.
Ah, what great insight. I have to tell you this, Kelly, as well. When they polled the jury, which is not atypical when there's a guilty.
Actually, I found a video where there's 3 jurors speaking, so I think we'll have a look at them.
I mean, I think you're knowing how high profile this case was.
Yes.
What's going through your head?
Sadness. It's sad. Whoops, I'm sorry. It's just sad that, this has happened to Charles, and she's given up her life as well. It's sad.
What did you think of her defending herself? Anything that went through the jury's head with that?
Well, for me personally, I thought, what does she have to lose? Guilty or not guilty, what does she have to lose? So,
were any of you folks aware that this woman had already been
I had never been
convicted
heard.
of
I have never
3
heard of her.
homicides?
Yeah, no,
And
I've
the
never
jurors
heard of
did
her
not
before.
know that.
No, I did not.
And nobody brought it.
And ma'am, would you want to come in and talk too? Do you want to say anything?
Just because there's a lot of backstory here, and this woman had already been convicted of 3 homicides, and they obviously didn't want you folks to know that. Nobody knew that during your deliberations.
No.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Wow.
What was this experience like for you?
It was sad, as he said. For me, it was the text messages that did it as far as evidence. And I feel like we uncovered some lies.
Knowing now that she was convicted of killing her 2 children in Idaho.
I haven't had a chance to Google everything. I'm sure as soon as we get on the shuttle. So might have more to say later.
Was that difficult going through this and
Yes,
not being able to be disconnected?
Yeah.
What
It just felt like there was a lot of information that didn't make sense and that was missing.
Do you think she did herself any favors by
No.
defending herself?
No,
You were not impressed with her lawyering skills?
no.
What did you think of her behavior during cross-examination? The way that at one moments she was argumentative with some of the witnesses.
Many days she just was smiling and laughing and didn't seem to take anything very seriously.
Were you hoping to hear it? How much of that did that play into a factor in the decision?
It did.
Were you hoping to hear her testify? Were you hoping
Yes,
to hear
I
her
was.
testify?
I was.
And what about you?
I didn't understand why she didn't call anyone.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Or why she didn't have
Okay, let's.
I know
see
she
what
made a
talk.
statement about the only family that was interviewed was her estranged.
In to begin those deliberations. So yesterday, did you deliberate and discuss at all? You were just in session for a very short amount of time.
We did not.
Okay.
We got sat back there, and then they told us that we'll be back tomorrow morning. So.
Okay. And then so today, when you made your way back into the courtroom, what's the first thing? Did you take a vote? What took place?
A lot of eyes were on us. We got set back into that room, and then that's kind of where they told us now is the time that we can talk about it we had all the evidence, so we could relook at it, we could watch everything, we could reread everything, and that's exactly what we did. So it took a little bit of time, but we did it.
When you talk about some people needed some convincing, what were some of the sticking points?
The text messages, the romantic messages that were between
Lori and Chet Daybell.
Correct. Just 3 days after. Yeah, so that was pretty crazy because that means that there was something before that. But and then when she was still talking to her brother, they said that she said that they were going to be like Nephi, and that.
Yeah, this thing about being gods and goddesses and what have you, because these jurors, they've seen all these messages, etc. You know, they've probably seen more than we have, you know, and they're, you know, they're not, people aren't stupid, are they? I mean, if somebody's sending romantic messages 3 days after their husband's been shot and killed twice, and that was the other thing that you'll find that this girl says, it perturbed them, if you like, that he was claiming self-defense, but he shot Charles twice. And the second time he shot Charles was on the floor. And that was proven. So you don't, if it's self-defense, you don't shoot someone twice, do you? So
that Charles was Ned before they got rid of him. So the part where they said they got rid of him was kind of where we were all like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
For jurors, was it hard to understand and wrap your head around what was going on? While I was sitting inside the courtroom, I noticed there was one point during the trial that a lot of jurors were taking notes when the prosecutor was talking about Z's, zombies. When the jurors are starting to hear about all of these just different, maybe outside the box religious beliefs, what was going through your head?
It's a lot to take in. Coming from a small town, I've never heard of anything like that before. So that being, when they were talking about it, I think all of us were kind of like, we've never heard of that. So we started taking notes on what she was calling them so we could look back at the times, when, why, how, all that stuff.
Yeah. When Lori gave her opening statement, so back a few weeks ago now, she was emotional during that time. You're hearing about a family tragedy. That's what she referred to this as. What did you think of that message? In the beginning, let's talk about maybe in the beginning first.
When we heard it in the very beginning, I think a couple of us felt for her when she said that, because, I mean, it's not easy losing someone you've been with for so long, whether you don't like them or not. But then as time went on, it kind of got a little more real, and I'm not sure what I can say.
No, that's okay. And then at the end, I noticed during the closing argument, some of the jurors, I didn't notice you, but
yeah, she looks worried about what she can say or not, but the judge had said to the jurors, you're now free to say whatever you want about the case. So she is allowed to say whatever she wants now. She was released. All the jurors were told by the judge, say whatever you like now about the case, it's over.
some of the jurors had their hands crossed during her closing argument, at least for some of it. And I felt, just from being a spectator in the gallery, that the opinion kind of has changed a bit. And maybe Lori's comments are not as believable maybe as they had been at the opening.
Yeah, that's right. Because we got shown a lot more stuff from the since the beginning. And so it all kind of came to a realization that it's actually a real thing that she did. And our emotions changed because at first, like I said, we were kind of feeling for her when she said it was a tragedy. But now that we've seen everything, we've touched everything, we've read everything, it's a lot. So we've been through a lot on this jury.
You definitely have. What about the prosecutor's point about Charles Vallow lying on the ground and that second shot? She spent a lot of time focusing on that second shot. Did that play a factor in your decision?
It did, because what she was What she was basically saying was that it was self-defense. One shot, yeah, probably maybe self-defense. But the second shot, realizing that he got.
So again, pardon the pun, but she shot herself in the foot by concentrating on the second shot. She should, a clever defense lawyer would have avoided that. You wouldn't want to talk about the second shot because they're trying to. Thing is, you can't charge someone, you can't find someone guilty of conspiracy to murder if it was self-defense. So really, that's what she should have been concentrating on, wasn't it? That it was self-defense, and going on about the second shot. That just sort of ruined it for her. I mean, I think she literally, for her own sort of narcissism, for her own, desire to do it all herself because she thinks she's better than everybody else. I think if she would have had a clever, we've seen defense lawyers, they drive us mad, but, that's their job. I think if she would have got a better defense lawyer rather than herself, I think she would have maybe, because at the end of the day, it's not for the defense. The defense only doesn't have to prove anything, really. It's the prosecution that has to prove it. And a clever defense person, I think in this case, particularly because they had this hurdle to overcome in the first place of proving that it was ever murder in the first place, could have maybe done a bit more with it. But hey, there you go, Laurie. That's what you get for being a narcissist.
Got shot the second time when he was already on the ground. That's not self-defense. No matter what anyone says, it's just not. They can't do anything when they're on the ground. So that's when we were like, yeah, they're right about that. So
another thing the prosecutor talked about is the money. How did that play? Now, Lori said in her opening that it is not a crime to have life insurance policies on somebody, that her husband had a $2 million life insurance policy on her. How did that play?
It kind of stayed in all of our minds from the beginning because it is a lot of money, even though hers is more. $1 million is still a lot of money. And I don't know if you guys saw the texts or heard them, but she was pretty upset when she realized she was not the beneficiary. And then when they talked about it in person, she just kind of rolled her eyes and scuffled at us. So, yeah.
Yeah, because what Laurie did not know was she knew there was this massive, it was $1 million, the life insurance policy on Charles's life, but she thought she was the beneficiary. And then she found out that he had changed the beneficiary. She was not happy.
Yeah, she kind of played it as like we should be on her side, but we weren't because, I mean, seeing the text messages that she was upset, even though she said she wasn't, and that, yeah, it's a lot.
What about the text message that we got rid of him before we got rid of him?
Yes. That's when it kind of clicked to all of us. Really? Everything leading up to that was just more back of what we were already thinking when they did end up saying that.
I know your ride is here. I appreciate you talking.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that his family is at peace. We got to see his sister's face and family's face when they said guilty, and they all just looked so relieved. It was a good feeling.
Thank you again, Tasha. Appreciate you talking to us.
So yeah, that was just one of the jurors talking. They've all allowed to speak. The judges given them carte blanche to speak. And it's interesting to listen to the jurors and but personally, I think in this particular case, I mean, Laurie is already, as I say, under a life sentence anyway for the other things. But it's interesting, isn't it, to see that she's literally hoisted by her own petard, by her own narcissism, her own conviction that she can do it better than anybody else, blah de blah de blah de blah de blah. She can't, she couldn't, she was rubbish, she wrecked it for herself. I honestly think a clever defense lawyer probably could have found her not guilty, got a not guilty verdict just by downplaying the 2 shots and making it, it was found to be, it's just the whole way she dealt with it, the way she attacked. I'm sure that the jurors didn't like the way she spoke to Charles's sister on the stand, or the way she spoke to that poor woman who'd only been out for one dinner date with Charles, and she's like making her seem to be a scarlet woman because she goes out with married men, and look what Laurie's been up to. All those things just have made it worse. And then her sort of peak, how annoyed she was when her brother couldn't remember the chicken chili enchiladas or whatever they were that she always made for the family. Do you know what I mean? And how can you not remember them? And he said, no, I don't really remember anything about them. So I think all those things have contributed to Laurie being found guilty, and good. Because of course she's guilty. Of course she is. She's guilty of that. There's more to come out. That won't be the last trial, I don't think, for Laurie Laurie Daybell Vallow, or whatever she's calling herself at the moment. It's not going to be the last trial. There's still a couple of things to come out yet. And she'll probably get found guilty of more things yet. But anyway, truth is certainly stranger than fiction, isn't it? You couldn't put a drama together on Netflix or ITV or BBC, fictional drama that people would watch and believe more than that. It's like, how can this be real? That this happened. All these people, it's like I always feel with Laurie. There she is, and there's all these bodies behind her, all these dead people piled up, including her own children. But she don't give a shit. She does not give a shit because she's that much of a Fruit Loop. She just doesn't get it at all. How many people have got so many dead people behind them? And not like a serial killer. She is a serial killer, really. This is her own family. Her own family, her own, it's not a serial killer roaming around and just killing random people. She's killed her own children, her own husbands, her new husband's wife. I tell you what, there's a husband in the past that died strangely. Even her own brother, the hitman, Alex, the one that she used to kill. It just makes you wonder, did they have anything to do with that as well? Because, was it to silence him because he had, he knew too much? Who knows? But I'll tell you what, this woman, Laurie, who believes in God, doesn't she? She believes she's a messenger from God. She said in that interview we watched that she believes she was put in prison to help the other prisoners. Forget the people I've murdered. Anyway, she believes in God. She thinks she's a messenger from God. She thinks she's a bit of a goddess. She's going to lead the chosen ones. At the end of the world, she's going to be, one of this is what she believes. Well, I think she'll get a shock. She's going to get a shock in this life. In this life, she's doing her time and whatever. I'll tell you what, she'll get an even bigger shock in the next life. They were both convicted, Bluebell, of killing Double Chin Chad's wife. Well, she was convicted of conspiracy. Laurie's never. That's probably why she hasn't had the death penalty. She's not been convicted of murder. She's been convicted of conspiracy to murder. Whereas Chad has been convicted of murder, and he has got the death penalty, hasn't he? So when that'll ever happen, I don't know. And of Alec, so I don't think she's ever been convicted of actually committing the act. She wouldn't get her hands dirty. Oh my God, no, ruin her nails, wouldn't it? So she's not going to do that. She's just organised it. Do you know what I mean? Let's see what her actual convictions are. Just, when I talk about Laurie, I just think this is her A fourth life sentence. Let's see. So Doomsday Mum, Laurie Vallow. Let's have a look at this. Convicted of conspiring to kill her estranged husband. Look at her face. Oh, look at those eyebrows. Oh my God, they're awful. Yeah, she's got her face. To me, Laurie's face says everything that Laurie is. It's ugly like her soul. I think she's got an ugly soul. So she was handed a life sentence, adding to her 3 life sentences. Oh, it says for killing her 2 youngest children and a romantic rival. So she's got another trial coming up. She's scheduled to go on trial again in early June on a charge of conspiring to murder Brandon Boudreau, the ex-husband of her niece. Well, if she decides to, I mean, she may well decide to represent herself there because she likes the attention, doesn't she? So, oh, I missed the sentence. So she's got another life sentence. Yeah. God. Oh my God. You know, she thinks she's absolutely beautiful. Look, that is her. That is Laurie Daybell. The badness, in my opinion, shines out of her eyes. She's just Fruit Loop, mad, bad. She's everything that's negative. And you know, one thing that's interesting, one of her sons, her older son, he's so lovely. He seems to have taken all, because she's, you know, she's intelligent. Is she? I don't know if she's intelligent, actually. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, yeah, her son seems to have taken on her positive attributes without the evil and the madness. So yeah, Alex Cox, who claimed he acted in self-defense when he fatally shot Mr. Vallow, died 5 months later from what medical examiners said was a blood clot in his lungs. Yeah, so we don't get Alex's side of the story either, but I think Alex would probably tell us he did it all for her. And she knew about it all, so. Yeah, her son is, what's his name, Bluebell? What's his name? We forgot. She looks like a painted pig and she looks like an old leather boot. She does. She looks hard, doesn't she? That's the thing. Listen, it's not what somebody looks like in a way, you know, don't have to be absolutely gorgeous, but she hasn't got a kind face, has she? She's got a hard face. Hard face. Is there a son called Brandon? I think he's called Brandon or something. But anyway, yeah, he seems like a lovely guy. He seems to have escaped the madness. Who knows how Tylee and JJ would have turned out, because they were never given a chance, were they? Bless them. Okay, right, I'm going to have my lunch now. I've got baked potato in the oven. I'm going to have a baked potato with some tuna. Yeah, got to have some lunch. So, but I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Thank you for caring about the victims in this case, which of course are Charles, the kids, and Tammy, of course, Double Chin Daybell's wife. So yeah, very Colby, that's it. Colby, Ryan, yeah. Okay, take care. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, as always, may your God go with you. Always. Siempre. Adios.